Welcome to Windsor Chronicles, your window into the heart of royal life, where duty, image, and legacy meet the modern world. Today's story takes us across oceans, from the corridors of Buckingham Palace to the vibrant shores of Brazil. It's a story about King Charles III and Prince William, about power passed not by decree but by influence, and at the centre of it all, a single speech, a so-called landmark moment that could define how the world sees the next generation of royal leadership. Prince William has arrived in Brazil to host his Earthshot Prize ceremony and attend the upcoming COP30 Upcoming Climate, a global gathering of world leaders united under the banner of environmental change. But behind the polished photographs and royal soundbites lies something deeper. A son walking the same environmental path as his father, with a little help from the king himself. Prince William boarded a commercial flight to Brazil, a symbolic gesture perhaps, in a world increasingly critical of royal travel habits. This trip marks his first official visit to Latin America, and the itinerary is packed with high-profile stops. From Rio de Janeiro's iconic Christ the Redeemer statue to the beaches, stadiums, and the Earthshot Prize ceremony, where stars like Kylie Minogue and Shawn Mendes are set to perform. But behind the glamour lies strategy. William's team has framed this trip as a turning point, a moment for the prince to step onto the world stage, not just as heir to the throne, but as a global leader on climate action. He will also make an appearance at COP30 Belém, the world's largest climate summit, representing both his father, King Charles III, and the British government. In his own words, William said he was excited to experience Brazil's vibrant culture, its extraordinary biodiversity, and above all, the warmth of its people. He added that noble words, and yet the question remains, will they resonate beyond the headlines? Before his departure, palace sources revealed that King Charles personally helped shape Prince William's speech for COP30. The king, a lifelong environmental advocate whose voice has echoed in climate circles for decades, reviewed early drafts, offering thoughts and refinements. It's said that the two men shared numerous conversations about the summit and the message William would deliver. For Charles, this was more than fatherly advice. It was mentorship, a passing of the torch. King Charles has long been seen as the monarchy's green conscience, speaking about the environment long before it became fashionable. And now, with his son preparing to take the stage at one of the world's most watched climate events, the symbolism couldn't be stronger. In essence, this speech isn't just William's. It's the king's voice continued through his heir. But let's step back for a moment. For years, the monarchy has been as much about presentation as policy. Prince William's environmental image has been carefully cultivated through the Earthshot Prize, polished magazine interviews, and photo spreads featuring clean energy projects, nature walks, and global partnerships. He recently appeared on the cover of Hello magazine, positioning himself as a hands-on environmentalist. The article, however, raised eyebrows among royal watchers, given the prince's well-documented use of private jets, helicopters, and lavish estates. As one critic quipped, "It's hard to talk about carbon footprints when yours spans 6 royal residences." Still, the effort to project William as a modern, environmentally conscious heir continues, with the king's guidance quietly shaping every move. And that's the duality of royal life. The message may be noble, but the optics are always fragile. The collaboration between King Charles and Prince William reveals both continuity and contrast. Charles has spent decades fighting to be taken seriously as an environmental voice. He faced ridicule in the 1980s for speaking about organic farming, sustainability, and climate change, topics dismissed as eccentric royal hobbies at the time. But history proved him right. Today, those same causes define global policy debates. Prince William, on the other hand, inherits a world where environmentalism is not controversial, but expected. His challenge isn't to convince people the crisis is real. It's to prove his commitment is authentic. That's why the king's mentorship matters. It gives William not just talking points, but legitimacy, a lineage of concern that stretches from one reign to the next. This trip, then, becomes more than a royal duty. It's a test of whether the heir can transform inherited causes into his own platform. Back in Britain, palace insiders described this speech as a landmark moment, the prince's chance to show he's more than just the next in line. But even before he speaks a word in Brazil, royal critics are already watching the optics closely. The confusion around COP30's start dates has raised questions about whether William's team is overstating his involvement, echoing past moments where meetings near major events were spun as central appearances. It's not the first time such creative scheduling has occurred. Observers recall a previous trip to New York, where a meeting held from the United Nations was framed as a UN engagement. Royal PR is a delicate dance, one where perception often overshadows substance. And in that dance, every photo, every headline, every speech becomes part of a narrative carefully choreographed behind palace gates. Even in Brazil, King Charles' presence lingers over the event. Though he remains in the UK, his influence is unmistakable. From his lifelong environmental campaigns to his subtle editorial hand in William's remarks, the king is guiding the story, ensuring that the monarchy's environmental legacy remains intact. Yet for William, this may be both a blessing and a burden. Because the more he leans on his father's expertise, the harder it becomes to define his voice. The question for many royal observers is simple. Can Prince William evolve beyond his father's shadow? Or will his reign, when it comes, be seen as an echo of the king's rather than a new chapter? In Rio de Janeiro, preparations are underway. The lights, the press, the global spotlight, all focused on one man at the podium. He'll speak about optimism, courage, and collaboration, invoking a sustainable future that feels both noble and urgent. And somewhere in the quiet corners of Clarence House, a proud father may be listening, hearing the echoes of his own words reshaped by his son. For a brief moment, the two generations of monarchs stand aligned, their voices united by a cause larger than the crown itself. Prince William's journey to Brazil is more than a royal visit. It's an act of inheritance. He's carrying forward the mission his father began decades ago, but under the unforgiving gaze of the modern world. In time, the speeches, the flights, the photo ops will fade. What will remain is the question of authenticity, whether the next king's commitment to the planet can outlive the performance of it. You've been listening to Windsor Chronicles. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the lives, loves, and legacies of Britain's royal family, where every public act carries a private story. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and remember, behind every royal speech, there's always another voice guiding the words.